Welcome back to iBosch USA Certificate in Permit to Work Part 8. The next is Work at Height Permits. Working at height permits are essential documents designed to ensure the safety of individuals performing tasks at elevated locations. These permits are typically issued by competent authorities or site supervisors to authorize workers to carry out tasks at heights such as construction, maintenance, or repair works on building, towers, scaffolding, or any elevated structures. The purpose of work at height permit is to mitigate risk associated with working at elevated level and to enforce compliance with the safety regulations and procedures. Now let's discuss hazards and controls of work at height. We know that work at height involves tasks above ground level such as working on scaffolds, working on ladders, rooftops or elevated platform. Working at height presents various hazards that can lead to falls, slips, trips, and other serious accidents. Now, let's understand these hazards in detail. The first and foremost hazard associated with the work at height is fall from height. Workers may fall from elevated surface, leading to injuries or fatalities. In order to avoid such fall, use guardrails, barriers, or tow boards to prevent fall from open edge or edges with the potential fall hazards. Provide PFAS personal fall arresting system such as harness, lanyards, and anchor point for workers performing tasks at height. Ensure that fall protection systems are properly fitted, inspected, and used according to manufacturer's instruction and regulatory requirements. Conduct regular inspections of fall protection equipment and systems to identify defects or signs of wear and tear. The next hazard associated with the work at height is slip, trip, and fall on elevated surfaces. Slippery or uneven surface, debris, or obstacles on elevated work platforms can cause slip, trip, and falls. In order to avoid slip, trip, and fall, maintain clear, clean, and dry walking surfaces on elevated platform to perform slips and trips. Provide anti-slip coating, mats, or grip tapes on surface prone to become slippery, such as scaffolds, ladders, or walkways. Ensure that work platforms are stable, level, and securely anchored to prevent tipping or collapse. Implement housekeeping procedures to remove debris, tools, or equipment from walking surface and prevent trip hazards. The next hazard associated with work at height is falling objects. Tools, equipment, materials, or debris may fall from elevated work area and strike worker below. In order to avoid falling objects, use tool lanyards, tethering systems, or tool belt to secure tools and equipment to prevent them from falling. Install debris nets, catch platforms, or tow boards to contain falling objects and protect workers below. Establish exclusion zone or restricted area beneath elevated work area to prevent workers from entering the danger zone. The next hazard associated with the work at height is structural collapse or failure. Structural collapse or failure of scaffolds, platforms, or support system can occur due to overloading, inadequate construction, hit by vehicle or equipment, or due to environmental factors such as rain. In order to avoid structural collapse or failure, ensure that scaffolds, platforms, and support systems are designed, installed, and maintained by competent person according to engineering standards and regulatory requirements. Conduct regular inspection of scaffolds, platforms, and support systems before each use to identify defects, damage, or signs of instability. Prohibit overloading of scaffolds or platforms and ensure that loads are evenly distributed to prevent structural failure. The next hazard associated with work at height is electric shock and electrocution. Working near electrical sources or overhead power lines can pose risk of electric shock or electrocution. In order to avoid electric shock or electrocution, maintain safe distance from overhead power lines as specified by regulatory requirements and industry standards. Use non-conductive ladders, fiberglass ladders means tools and equipment when working near electrical sources or overhead power lines. Implement lockout and tagout procedure to de-energize and isolate electrical circuits or equipment before performing work in their vicinity. The next hazard associated with the work at height is exposure to adverse weather conditions. See, exposure to adverse weather conditions such as high winds, rain, snow, or extreme temperatures can increase risk of accident and injuries for workers at height. In order to protect workers from adverse weather conditions, monitor weather forecasts and conditions to assess the risk of adverse weather events and suspend work at height if necessary. Provide suitable protective clothing such as waterproof jackets, thermal layers, or sun hats to protect workers from the effect of adverse weather condition. Erect temporary shelters, windbreaks, or canopies to provide protection from inclement weather during outdoor work at height. By implementing these hazard controls and following established safe work practices and procedures, organization can effectively mitigate the risk associated with work at height and ensure the safety of workers and the workplace. Regular training, hazard assessments, and communication of work at height safety measures are also essential components of comprehensive safety program for working at height.